Port Charles was no stranger to surprises, but no one expected the quiet shift happening between Sonny Corinthos and Mayor Laura Collins. It began with late-night strategy meetings at Laura's office. The city had been facing rising tensions, and Laura needed cooperation from every corner of Port Charles, including Sonny's. What started as professional conversations slowly turned into something more personal. They talked about their pasts, their regrets, and the weight of leadership neither of them could ever set down. Sonny found himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years. Laura, who had always seen Sonny as a complicated ally, began to notice a different side of him, one that few people ever got to see. Rumors started to swirl after the two were seen sharing coffee at Kelly's. Carly was the first to notice the change in Sonny's demeanor. He seemed calmer, more reflective. Meanwhile, Kevin gently questioned Laura about why she had been spending so much time with Sonny outside of official duties. Things escalated when a city crisis forced Sonny and Laura to work closely for several days. Long hours turned into shared meals, and shared meals turned into quiet laughter in the middle of tense moments. Their bond deepened naturally, without neither of them realizing how much they had come to rely on each other. But Port Charles is a town where secrets rarely stay hidden. Jordan began to suspect something when security footage showed Sonny entering the mayor's office late at night without an appointment. Curtis picked up on the town gossip and warned Laura that people were starting to talk. The real turning point came when Laura confided in Sonny about her fears of failing the people she cared about. Sonny reassured her in a way that was unexpectedly gentle, reminding her that strength didn't mean carrying everything alone. That moment changed everything. Soon they had to confront what was happening between them. Laura struggled with the idea of crossing a line that could complicate her role as mayor. Sonny worried about how this could affect his family and his reputation. Before they could make sense of their feelings, Carly confronted Sonny directly after hearing whispers around town. At the same time, Kevin gently asked Laura if her heart was getting involved where it shouldn't. Port Charles stood on the edge of yet another emotional storm as two of its most powerful figures found themselves navigating emotions neither of them had planned for. And just when they thought they could keep it private, an unexpected witness saw them sharing a quiet, meaningful moment outside the mayor's office, guaranteeing that by morning everyone in town would know. A connection neither of them expected was about to change everything in Port Charles. By sunrise, the whispers had turned into full-blown speculation. A single blurry photo began circulating around Port Charles. Sonny and Laura standing close outside the mayor's office, caught in a moment that looked far more intimate than either of them intended. No one knew who took it, but everyone had seen it. Carly wasted no time confronting Sonny at his penthouse. She didn't accuse him outright, but her questions were sharp, pointed. Sonny tried to downplay it, insisting that he and Laura were dealing with city matters. Carly wasn't convinced. She knew Sonny well enough to recognize when something emotional was unfolding beneath the surface. Across town, Kevin approached Laura with quiet concern. He didn't judge her, but he gently reminded her how easily public perception could spiral out of control. As mayor, even the appearance of a personal connection with Sonny could cause political fallout. Laura assured Kevin nothing inappropriate had happened, but as she said the words, she realized she wasn't entirely sure what inappropriate meant anymore. Meanwhile, Jordan launched a quiet inquiry into who leaked the photo. She suspected someone was trying to create tension between the mayor's office and Sonny, possibly to weaken them both at the same time. The situation grew more complicated when a council member questioned Laura during a public meeting about her recent private consultations with Sonny. Laura handled it with grace, but inside she felt the pressure building. The line between her personal feelings and public responsibility was getting thinner by the hour. Sonny, for his part, began pulling back.
He stopped visiting the mayor's office and limited communication to brief phone calls. He believed distancing himself was the only way to protect Laura from further scrutiny. But the sudden distance hurt more than Laura expected. When a new city emergency forced them to work together again, the tension between them was undeniable. Their conversations were shorter, guarded, yet the unspoken connection remained, stronger than ever. Finally, Laura confronted Sonny about the distance. In a quiet moment away from everyone, she admitted she missed their talks, not just the strategy, but the honesty they shared. Sonny confessed he was trying to shield her from the storm he knew would follow if people believed their connection was more than professional. That's when Laura said something that surprised even herself. Maybe she wasn't afraid of the storm anymore. Unbeknownst to them, Curtis had begun digging into who leaked the photo. His investigation pointed towards someone with a personal vendetta, someone who wanted to stir emotional chaos in Port Charles. And just as Sonny and Laura began to accept that their bond might be worth the risk, Curtis uncovered a shocking truth about the person behind the leak, someone much closer to them than either of them could imagine.
Curtis didn't like jumping to conclusions, but the trail was too clear to ignore. The metadata from the leaked photo pointed to a device that had been inside City Hall that night. After a quiet check of access logs and hallway cameras, Curtis narrowed it down to a small list of people with after-hours clearance. One name stood out. A junior staffer in the mayor's communications office, someone who had recently been reprimanded for leaking minor internal memos to a local blogger. At first glance, it looked like another reckless attempt to grab attention. But the more Curtis looked, the more it felt like someone had nudged this person into taking the picture and sending it out. He brought the information to Jordan, who immediately saw the bigger picture. This wasn't just gossip. Someone had used that staffer to create a public distraction aimed at both Sonny and Laura at the same time. And that meant intent. Jordan quietly questioned the staffer, who eventually admitted that an anonymous caller had tipped them off that Sonny would be visiting Laura late that night. The caller promised money for proof. Desperate and careless, the staffer took the photo and sent it in. But they never saw the caller. Everything had been arranged through blocked numbers and encrypted messages. When Curtis heard that, his instincts kicked in. This wasn't random. This was calculated. Meanwhile, Laura faced mounting pressure from the city council. A formal ethics review was being suggested, not because of proven wrongdoing, but because of public concern. Laura knew the process could drag on for weeks, damaging her credibility even if she was cleared. Sonny felt responsible. He told Laura he would make a public statement distancing himself from her completely if that's what it took to stop the political fallout. Laura refused. She told Sonny that if they allowed fear to dictate their actions now, whoever orchestrated this would win. For the first time, she wasn't thinking like a mayor under pressure. She was thinking like a woman tired of letting other people control her narrative. At the same time, Carly began to suspect something else was at play. The timing of the leak, the speed at which it spread, it felt orchestrated. She warned Sonny that someone might be trying to isolate him from his allies, not just create gossip. Then Curtis uncovered one more clue. The anonymous messages to the staffer had been routed through a private server, often used by a media consultant who had recently arrived in Port Charles, someone hired by a political rival hoping to challenge Laura in the next election cycle. This wasn't about romance, this was about power. And Sonny and Laura had been turned into pawns in a much larger strategy to weaken both of them before either realized what was happening. As Curtis rushed to tell them what he'd found, a news alert popped up across Port Charles. A local reporter had just published a follow-up story, claiming there was evidence of many more private meetings between Sonny and Laura that had never been disclosed. Someone was escalating the narrative, and this time it was going to be much harder to contain. The new article spread through Port Charles in minutes.
It listed dates, times, and vague descriptions of meetings that made Sonny and Laura's interactions look secretive and deliberate. None of it proved anything improper, but the way it was written told a damaging story all on its own. Laura read the piece twice in her office, her jaw tightening with each line. Someone had accessed internal scheduling logs, information that was never public. This was no longer gossip or political maneuvering, it was a breach. Jordan confirmed it shortly after. City Hall's system had been quietly accessed from an outside source over the past 2 weeks. Whoever was behind this had planned it carefully, collecting just enough data to create suspicion without revealing how they got it. Sonny, furious, wanted to confront the reporter directly, but Laura stopped him. Acting out now would only feed the narrative that he was interfering in city matters for personal reasons. Meanwhile, Carly began asking questions of her own. She spoke with a contact in the media world and learned that the reporter who published the story had recently received an anonymous research package filled with documents, photos, and suggested angles for a story about the mayor. Someone had practically written the article for them. Curtis traced the private server further and found a financial link. Payments routed through a shell company that had ties to a political consulting firm known for aggressive campaign tactics. The firm had recently been hired by Laura's potential election opponent. Everything was lining up. But before they could decide how to respond, Laura received an official notice. The city council was fast-tracking the ethics review. She would be required to answer questions publicly within 48 hours. The pressure was mounting fast. That evening, Sonny went to see Laura, not through the front entrance, but quietly through a side corridor to avoid attention. For the first time since this started, they didn't talk about strategy or politics. They talked about whether it was worth it. Laura admitted she was exhausted from defending herself over something that had barely even begun. Sonny confessed that he hated seeing her dragged into a mess that started because of him. Then Laura said something that changed the tone entirely. She told Sonny that regardless of what the town believed, what mattered was that their connection was real, and she wasn't going to pretend otherwise just to make things easier for people who wanted to tear her down. The next morning, Port Charles woke up to another surprise. Instead of waiting for the ethics hearing, Laura scheduled her own press conference, and standing beside her at the podium was Sonny Corinthos. Gasps filled the room as cameras flashed. Laura calmly addressed the rumors, the leaks, and the investigation. She admitted that she and Sonny had developed a personal friendship that grew out of their work for the city. She made it clear there had been no misconduct, no misuse of power, but she refused to apologize for caring about someone who had supported her during a difficult time. Then Sonny spoke. He didn't deflect, he didn't deny, he simply said that he respected Laura deeply and would never do anything to harm her position or the city she served. The moment was powerful, honest, and completely unexpected. But as the press conference ended, Jordan received an urgent message. The political consulting firm tied to the smear campaign had suddenly shut down its local office overnight. Phones disconnected, staff gone, records wiped. Whoever was behind this had just vanished. And that meant one thing. The real mastermind